Hi everybody, Lambkin here. Today we're gonna get into a little bit different of a video than what I usually make, but a lot of you guys have been asking me, especially in my previous live streams and stuff, what do you think are some of the worst matchups for law? What do you think is the worst matchup for law or bad matchups in general? And today I'm gonna talk a little about that exactly. So I do think that there are good and bad matchups for law in this game. For example, I think that Xiao Yu is actually a pretty good matchup for law, and I think that characters like Kazuya is a kind of a bad matchup for law, and especially I think that Bryan is one of the worst, if not the worst, matchups for law in this game. And today I'm gonna explain a little bit about why I think that is. So we're gonna be venturing into the realm of personal opinion here. So disclaimer, this is a personal opinion. You might not feel the same as I do, you might disagree, and that's completely fine. But this is my opinion, and I'm going to explain today why I think that this is such a bad matchup. So I think it's important to be said here that Bryan is actually a really bad matchup for a lot of characters in this game. He's just a really good, solid, overbuff character in my opinion, and he gives a lot of characters trouble, but especially Law in my opinion, and let's go into some of the reasons why. So one of the most important tools you have with Law is that you want to use his slides mainly and his low pokes to get people ducking so that you can either catch them out with a while standing 1-2 bonus points if they have that back against the wall, so you can get a wall splat, right? Or you want to catch them up off with a little bit more of a risky move like while standing 2, you can get the launch, right? But this is very, very dangerous to do against Bryan. So a couple things about Law's while standing 2. It is, let's see here, it is minus 18 on block, as you can see, so it is launch punishable, but it is not as easily launch punishable. It may look launch punishable on paper, but as you can see, it actually does have quite a bit of pushback. So we start out at range 2 here. You can see distance from opponent is 2 when we reset it here, and then on block he will push you to 2.25. You see? And if you're at range 1, pretty much, he'll push you to range 2.1. If you're at tip range, he will push you to 2.40, just about, right? And a lot of characters actually have great trouble punishing this move. Some characters cannot even punish it at close range. Some characters cannot punish it at range 2, and most characters cannot punish it at range 2.4. Let me demonstrate by way of example. Alright, so now that you've seen a little bit how difficult it can be for some characters to punish this, or at least launch punish this move, most characters can easily punish this, it's just not necessarily launch punish. But for Bryan, this is not really a problem. The only thing you will have a difficult time with is punishing it with Bryan at tip range, which is about 235-ish. You see, he will whiff at 235, and at that range, you're just gonna get whiff punished anyways, like this, right? So you really don't want to try and get it at tip range with Law here. So you see, at tip range, he cannot really punish it, and most characters cannot. But at range 2, he absolutely can launch punish you every single time. And of course, at range 1, it's not a problem for Bryan. So you want to be very careful using this against Bryan. Careful applying your slide mix-up. But this is where it gets more interesting here, because having a 14-frame launcher, the jet upper here, but you can buffer this input, by the way. It's not hard at all to do. You can buffer it during a block stun animation. You can buffer it during another attack. It's not going to be hard for any Bryan player to launch punish you with this. Having a 14-frame launch punisher which most characters don't have. It really opens up a new world danger, especially as a law player here. It means that moves that are usually not launch punishable are now launch punishable. So you will notice one of your essential tools as a law, back 122, it's -14. You will use this to catch out people with the last hit, delaying it. You will use it to mostly counter hit, confirm it into a guaranteed. You get the whole string guaranteed on counter hit, right? And that's the only way you can use this move against Bryan. You cannot try and catch him out with the delay, because if you do, he will just launch punish you for it, right? It is really not worth the risk. So the only way you can use this move in this game right here is to counter hit confirm it against Bryan, or you will get launched. And we have his another essential tool here. It's a power crush. It's back 1+2 power crush. It's also -14. So you will get. I was a little bit too slow there. You will get launched by Bryan here as well. Similarly, we have back 3+4. Now most characters can launch punish this, but as you can see, it does have some pushback here. But this is not at all a problem for Bryan to launch punish as well. You see. So you got to be careful with that move as well. But that goes for most characters. And then we have, not that you would ever use this really anyway, but be aware that even though back to 1 does have some pushback here, you will also get launch punished with the jet upper for doing this against Bryan. So yeah, basically Bryan is just he's such a machine when it comes to punishing. You really got to be careful, especially with law. You will get launch punished for stuff you wouldn't normally, right? So another reason that Bryan is so incredibly tough against law in this game is because he has a lot of knees and elbows. You see, like his back. Let's see, yeah, his back 4, for example, his forward 3, down forward 2 is a really good essential move. Forward 1+2, back 1+2. He has so many knees and elbows, right? And one thing you will usually use with law to get out of pressure or try and steal your turn back is he has the manual parry to parry punches and kicks, and you have the punch parry, right? But the punch parry will, as the name implies, it will only parry punches, and the manual parry will only parry kicks and punches, but it will not parry charged up or empowered kicks and punches like that, those of installs. Those powered up with installs, and it will not parry knees and elbows and headbutts and shoulders and hip strikes and anything like that. So you cannot really use your parries at all against Bryan, because again, everything he does, pretty much all of his good essential moves are knees and elbows, and you don't want to get hit by this, especially at the wall, because this guarantees like a jet upper on normal hit even. So what would you normally do against Bryan with law? Well, one thing you could do in Tekken 7 is you would usually try and counter hit him. You may say, like, why wouldn't you want to step Bryan? And that would also sound like a good idea initially, but that's only until you realize that Bryan has some of the best homing and tracking moves in the game. He has incredible tracking on his a lot of his moves, and he has so many homing moves. Like, he has a homing low launcher, of course, the infamous snake edge. He has a down forward 4, and which gives you like crazy Oki, right? So you don't want to get hit by that. You have stuff like this, has a crazy ton of tracking as well. 1+2. So much homing. So you generally don't want to step against Bryan at all. So what can you do against Bryan? You can't step, you can't parry him. What are you supposed to do? Well, one thing you used to be able to do is you can counter hit him, try and catch him out, right? You gotta be careful ducking as well, and the orbital, you gotta look out for that, right? But One thing you could try and do in Tekken 7, one of Law's best tools to deal with Bryan in Tekken 7 was actually his Magic 4 11 frame counter hit launcher. The thing is that, as you probably know by now, the Magic 4s were universally nerfed in Tekken 8, and that includes Law as well. Law still has his Magic 4, but it does come out at 13 frames instead of 11 frame, and it's not a true launcher on counter hit, the single hit anymore. You have to commit to both the first 2 hits of the Shaolin pin kicks. So that is really not a good idea to use against Bryan anymore. So you're just kind of like, you're in a very, very bad position as a Law player against Bryan. And that is some of the reasons why I think that this is such an incredibly tough matchup for Law in this game. Alright, so let me just reiterate here at the end. So why is this such a bad matchup for Law? Well, first of all, you are, as a Law player against Bryan, you are pretty much locked out of using a lot of your good core moves against Bryan because they are now launch punishable on block, right? Furthermore, you cannot really step Bryan to get around his pressure and his lockdown because he has some of the best, if not the best, tracking moves and homing moves in the game, and he has so many of them. And you can't rely on parrying him to get out of his pressure or to steal back your turn, because he has so many knees and elbows that are unparryable. And you can't even use your Power Crush to try and get out of his pressure or steal back your turn, because if he blocks it, you will just get launched for it and eat a lot of damage, right? So these are some of the reasons why I consider Bryan the absolute worst matchup for Law in this game. And if you like this kind of content, I guess let me know in the comment section. I will maybe do more of this in the future. Maybe we'll talk about some of the good matchups, quote unquote, against Law in this game. Maybe I'll talk more about matchup specifics in the future as well, if you like this kind of thing. But yeah, other than that, I hope you enjoyed this video, found it informative at least. So yeah, have a good one.